Welcome to Latina Mic Drop podcast, the space where powerful mujeres finally get the spotlight they deserve. I'm Miriam Simon, your host, executive coach, and modern maven dedicated to helping first gen and BIPOC leaders rise with power, truth, and corazon. If you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or expected to stay quiet while carrying the weight of the work, this podcast is your reminder that your voice matters and your story deserves volume. Here we talk real leadership, real breakthroughs, and the courage it takes to step into rooms that were not built for us. This is where street wisdom meets executive presence, where we honor the women who built from scratch and push past every limit placed on us. So get ready to own your power, lead without apology, and turn your voice all the way up. This is your moment, Chingona. Welcome to the Latina Mic Drop podcast. Hola, hola, hola. Welcome to Latina Mic Drop podcast, where we get real about what's happening in the workplace. So now I share what happens to me because if it happens to me, I know it's happening everywhere else. And I want to tell you what my discoveries are, when I discover them, and how I face them and how I deal with them. Not to give anybody advice, it's for educational purposes so that maybe it can bring something up for you in your experience. And of course, you're all smart enough to know what's right or wrong for you to do. But here's the thing 74% of Latinas reported microaggressions at work, which can affect promotion chances and visibility. That's by Forbes. Fuck. No wonder. And that's a lot of freaking Latinas that are facing this. That's not a little bit, that's a lot. What the hell? 3/4 of the freaking Latinas are facing microaggressions at work? Well, no wonder I'm not a freaking exception to that. I was before when I had a great person I was working for, but damn, I totally see the difference now. In practical terms, promotion discrimination against Latinas often shows up as fewer stretch assignments, less sponsorship from managers, biased performance reviews, and assumptions that they are less committed to leadership roles. Now, I can tell you that this is 100% true. But here's the thing. I am, I wasn't part of that until I was. And that's what's freaking scary. And that's what's pretty freaking annoying. And it brings up so much anger and it brings up so much emotion because, damn, I know life isn't fair. And I know sometimes things are stacked against us. But to understand that this is what's going on is insane. And then for our young Latino professionals, it says that 60% of them had been overlooked or intentionally passed over for advancement because of race. So how the hell are they going to get anywhere? How are we going to be seen? And when is that moment going to come? Ay, ay, ay. Well, here's the reality. I've been trying to get promoted for at least 3 years. And here's the other thing too. I have been told, because I speak a second language, that I have communication problems. Okay, so you hear me on Latina Mic Drop. You see that I'm a contributor to Forbes Coaches Council, as well as have my own Chingona Times. And the other thing is that I'm too casual to speak to senior leaders. Well, because I don't speak like a valley girl, or I don't know what it is that they want me to speak like, because I am a regular person from New Jersey who grew up in the hood and has had to fight and advocate for what the hell I have. So maybe I do have a little bit of edge and maybe I do have a little bit of passion or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, I execute and I get results. The other thing too that happened to me last year, which was the first time that I actually felt that they put me in a different category. I tried to have a conversation with somebody and let them know that something wasn't going to happen and that they couldn't speak to the person that they wanted to because that's the person who doesn't handle it. Well, this person wanted to take this in the wrong way, and she didn't like the fact that I said, no, that's not the right one. Don't do that. And I didn't have an answer to further give her any more information because I wasn't ready yet to give her that information. So she understood it as me being aggressive or whatever the heck she thought. I don't even know what she thought because she was never courageous enough to have a conversation with me. Because when I made an effort to have a conversation with her, she declined the meeting, and a senior executive had advised her to decline the meeting. Then the other thing that happened after that was then all of a sudden that senior leader brings in another senior leader to speak to me together. So now I was thinking, okay, so should I cancel my meeting and decline their meeting because they didn't give me an agenda? That's what she told the other woman, to not meet with me unless I gave her an agenda. Girl, I was not going to write anybody up and I was not going to do anything negative. I'm not that kind of person. What I was doing was trying to have a conversation with a neutral party where I knew that I could be supported and so could the other person be supported. That was it. It had nothing to do. This person that I brought in, anyways, was a nice person. This is not the person that's going to be punitive in any kind of way. If you know who it is, there's nothing punitive about it. And I realized that these people were really afraid of me. They were really thinking that I was trying to pull something on them. And I realized that this was the first time that I was being treated like a Latina. And I was like, wow, I am just trying to be a regular person. And I am just trying to be a regular person who has a conversation in a corporate environment, in a professional space. I am by no means, and here's the other thing, right? I also know, because I am an HR professional, that sometimes you need to bring in somebody just because you need to have a witness, because otherwise people will say whatever they want. And then it's a she said, he said, or type of conversation. And then it goes nowhere. And then it's on whoever is on whoever's side, because sometimes you think people are going to be unbiased and people don't have sides, but they do. And now I realize people have bias too. And I know that they have bias, but damn, it was the first time they've ever used it against me. And I hadn't, it was actually with the person who actually brought me into the freaking department. And I said, well, what the hell has changed since 6 years ago when I came into the department? It was so hard for me to freaking sit there and realize that I had become a person that they felt to them that they needed to be protected from. That is insane. And until this day, that relationship has not been great and it hasn't been good. And you know what's so interesting is the fact that somebody else had actually called me a few years ago and said, hey, so what's your deal with the senior leader? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, there is no deal with the senior leader. And at that moment, they were a peer. They weren't like senior leader yet. And I said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And they were like, well, this is what I'm hearing through the grapevine. And it was because the person who knew them was sitting next to her. And I guess they probably overheard conversations. I don't know, unless they had conversations. I don't even know. I don't even know. And I don't really care. And I am not really interested in the gossip about me. I am really not interested in the nonsense that happens behind closed doors because of whatever. Because at the end of the day, speak to me about the professional receipts. Speak to me about performance. Speak to me about what I am doing. And if you want to be that leader who comes to you and tells you the right thing, be that person who comes and says, hey, you know what? This is where we see that you're lacking X, Y, and Z. And guess what I would do? I would listen to it. I would listen to it and I would go work on it. I would find a class because I have access. I would find a professional development course because I have access. I can either pay for it myself or ask for them to pay for it. So I would be improving on it. I would never take it as something negative. because there's something about blind spots. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't see it. And so, yes, do you hear me as passionate as I am? Because that to me was truly one of the craziest things ever, because it had never, ever happened to me. And the one thing that I did do was I did know my rights. I did speak up in the conversation and said, neither you or you will be able to tell me who I can go to. Because sometimes they try to tell you that you can't go beyond who you're dealing with and that I should have come to them. But I didn't come to them because I knew that they had close conversations without me that sided with the other person. They didn't give me the same opportunity. They didn't come to me to tell me anything. They didn't come to talk to me about that. And so here's the thing. I am the kind of person and the kind of manager that people love me, and as well as I keep them accountable. So whenever people are BSing me or not doing the right thing, I will address it. And so what happens? People don't like that when you address situations and when you keep them on track with their work. And there are some people who do not take that in a good way because they don't want to work. I'm not the kind of person that will let you drown, baby. Like, you are not going to drown if you are on my team. But if you drown, you're drowning because you want to drown. You drown because you want to not work. So here's the thing. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of people. So there's no backing on any of that. And the one thing that I do is I do speak up, because that is the one thing that I have been able to use and have been able to work with. And so after that meeting, I was like, damn, like, what the heck did I do wrong? What the heck did I do wrong? And I thought it was me, and you know what? There are just always two sides of the story, and some people say there are three sides to the story, and that's what gets to me, because people automatically assume you're lying. And it's sad when people think like that, and people think that you would be the kind of person that wouldn't say the truth or wouldn't talk the reality of the situation. Hey, listen, how I say things and how you respond are two different things. How you say things and how I respond are two different things. And if we came from an emotional space, I don't know, I can't even tell you. But it was just so incredible that all of a sudden, this is what happened. And here's the other part about this too, is that I am a certified executive coach, and while this other person has had to be coached. So this is where I don't let these things get to me. But at the same time, I listen and I learn, and I see what the lessons are, because it makes no sense for you not to take accountability for what part you had in this situation. Even if it's not about the right or wrong, it's just about how people work. Like I said, this is a human first leadership podcast. It's not to place blame on people. It's just to talk about the realities of what happens and how it happens, and try to understand where people are coming from so that we can move forward. And it was just so incredible to me that I was able to come out of that situation without any negative things happening or any negative anything. And because they have nothing to stand on. If they did, it would be easy to do so, but there's nothing. There's nothing. It's like they keep seeking and trying to find where the negative hole is or where the gap is. It's crazy. But now that I see the statistics are 75%, 74, almost 75% of women have microaggressions and things are happening like that, Latinas. Wow. That really tells me the whole story. And, I feel bad for them, those senior leaders, because it's sad that they would even think that they needed to protect themselves against me. And that shows me that I have power. And I think a lot of people forget that they have power in what they do and what they say and how they treat people and how they deal with certain situations. As you can tell, it's hard because it's not easy to be seen as a problem or an issue or something or someone they need to protect themselves against. But unfortunately, right? Sometimes that's where it is, and that's where we are in the workplace. And I really sometimes just wish I could go back to 3 years ago when everything was flying high and the wind was in my hair and everything was great and everything was lovely, but it isn't. So it's something that I know a lot of you are going through. And in my coaching sessions, I have seen how this type of situations at work have negatively affected you just like it's negatively affected me. This is why I don't talk about it, because it's hard. But at the same time, it needs to be said. And I want to remind you all that you have ways where you can continue to do your work and continue to do a good job. The one thing I would never do is I would never give anybody a reason to look at me left, to look at me right, to look at me up and down. I don't care. Look at me however you want. I will always do the right thing. I always do the work. I will continue to help the people that I serve because that is my calling in that job. I was called for that. I'm pretty hell of fucking good at it. And there's so much for me to continue to do because the work is never gone. There's always more. And I have some really exciting projects, and knowing your rights and standing up for yourself, and sometimes needing to say what needs to be said in order for them to understand that you're coming from a place of working things out and ensuring that things are good. And thankfully, I had one person who was more level headed than the other. So I'm really grateful and thankful for that, because had I not had that, I don't know where this would have landed. And this person probably would have already exited me out of the company, which is a damn shame. But at the end of the day, when one door closes, another opportunity opens. And I know for some of you that has been what has happened, is that there's a change in leadership and all of a sudden these other people have power over you, completely disagree with the way that you do things and think that you should be doing how they do all the time, every time. And that's not leadership. I don't know what the heck to call it, because I don't live that way and I don't act that way. And that to me is not human first leadership, because you have your way and I have mine, and we can get to the same place together. We can reach goals together. We can amount to great things together, and together is better than freaking doing it separate and apart and in a divisive way. So learn your rights, find the people that you can call, and do the best that you can in the work that you're doing. And yes, there are some things that we all need to improve upon. Don't be blind to that. Ask for feedback, get it, and improve. Find a way to figure it out. Find a way to make it work for yourself. Find a way to do whatever it is. All of us are carrying a bunch of stuff. Our cultural background has a lot to do with why sometimes it doesn't work in the workplace. And that's a conversation for another day, not because it's wrong, but because it's different. And they don't know what they don't know because it's culturally different. And the same way for us, we don't understand them sometimes because they're culturally different and their cultural norms are different. And so what we've learned is different from what they've learned. And then when you bring them in, it's a clash of the cultures. Well, this has been Latina Mic Drop. Thank you for tuning in, and see you on the flip side.